All right. So what I said before I started recording was that we're going to use simple if statements to create a game. And the game is going to be a guessing game. In order to have a guessing game, we have to have a correct number. In this case, I'm making a variable called winning number and giving it the number 7. Why do we give it the number 7? Because we like the number 7.
Good old lucky number 7.
Good old lucky number 7. Now, in order for it to be a game, we have to have some sort of interaction with the user, which means I'm going to make a variable called user guess. Now, really simple. We're going to make a cout that asks the user to give us a number between 1 and 10. We're going to store that user's guess in the variable user guess. It's just a formatting thing that I like. You don't have to have them. You could just have spaces, right? You could
print out the double dots.
Yeah, it will print out. Yeah, it'll output the double colon. And I just like the way that looks on my console. That's not even a best practice. That's just an Atom preference. So now our first if statement. If user guess is equal to winning number. We can have a cout that says you won in one guess. I'll give you a second to type all this out. So this is a super simple game. You run the game. Give us a number between 1 and 10. 5. Game ends. Nothing happens. Why not? I don't have an else, right? So I could have an else statement here. You lost. And now we've created a game. A game has a couple of features. A game has to have some input interaction with the player. A game has to have some sort of win or loss condition. Once upon a time, I would have said a game has to have a win condition. But you don't have to have a win condition. You just have to have a win or a loss condition. There has to be a way for the game to end. You've probably played Endless Runners. Most Endless Runners do not have a win condition. They just have a way to lose. Still a game. Tetris. I think Tetris had a win condition in its original, but I don't think anybody got there. There was a kid who did, but that was recently, right? Yeah.
He ran it until it broke.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it. Well,
I don't think that was as well.
is what?
I don't think there's a witch on it because the game just exploded itself.
Yeah, it just crashed.
Yeah.
It couldn't handle it. Yeah.
And the soul is still on your number, and then it crashes.
Because it can't handle it.
It flips over something and it just breaks.
Yeah. There was no expectation that anyone would get that high, right? But now we have the ability to run it on a oh, what's it called? Emulator. And you can slow the emulator down, right? So people can get there. But we have a guess, we have a win, we have a loss. I have a phone call.
Yes.
All right. So we want this to be a better game though, right? Like I can play it now. And I can give a number and I can lose, or I could pick 7 and I could win, right? There's the only 2 options: win in one guess or lose. But we want to do better than that, right? So we're going to use an else if. Else, if user guess is less than winning number, you guess too low. Else if user guess is greater than winning number, you guessed too high. Bless you. Bless you. So we have this structure. We can tell them they guess too low or they guess too high. We'll play again. Give us a number between 1 and 10. And we can copy this. If they pick the winning number, you 1 and 2 guesses. Oops. But this is a problem. Do we know why this is a problem?
It's just repeated stuff. Make a function.
You can make a function for it, and we will do that. But what really sucks about this is if I guess correctly, I 1 and 1 guess. It asks me to play again. I 1 and 2 guesses. Because this whole new thing needs to be housed in each one of our user guesses incorrect. So you guess too low, and then it asks you for your user guess, and then it goes through the exact same thing again. You line up all of your brackets, you 1 and 2 guesses. Now this only happens if your user guess was too low. Does that make sense? So if you guess too low, it tells you you guessed too low, and then it tells you basically try again, right? But when you guess too high, it doesn't do that. So we would then have to come in and copy this and paste it down here in the you guessed too high, right? And then if you still guess too low, we could put it in here. And if you still guess too high, we could paste that same thing in there. But as Mike mentioned, this is just a thing that we should be able to make a function, right? And if we can make a function, then we don't have to put 20 lines of code in every time. We could do it with just one. So we'll go back, get rid of all of this. So our very beginning, give us a number between 1 and 10, and then they give us a guess, right? So when we write a function for this, what does our function need to do? I'm going to name it check guess. And I'm going to make it a Boolean. So in order to check the guess, what kind of parameters do we need? We could put an if then in here, right?
Oh, then what do you have to feed into that?
Yeah, what are our parameters?
Number.
So we have to have one parameter for when, and then we have to have another parameter for guess, right? Because what we're going to do here is check if guess equals when. We're going to do one thing, right? Else, if guess is less than when, we're going to do another thing. Else, if guess is greater than when, we're going to do another thing. So we've already written all of this out, right? So I'm just going to come down and copy and paste from down here. So then we return true when they win and return false when they lose. Whoops, return false. So we've written a function called check guess, which brings in the winning number and the guess and compares them to determine if you won or not. So that means we don't need any of this stuff anymore because we're doing it in the function check guess using winning number and user guess. So the structure is exactly the same as we had before, except we're using a function instead of just punching it all in.
You can't really say you wanted one guess anymore, though, could you?
Not yet. Well, you can right now, but because it only runs once, right? We'll fix it. I hope. Now check guess returns true or false. That means we can use it as a condition. So if this returns true, we'll say thanks for playing. In the event that it's not true, we're going to ask the user to give us a number between 1 and 10. And then we're going to check the guess again. Because we can nest this as many times as we want, do it again. And because we can do it as many times as we want, we can do it again. Now, in the event that we've gone through this guess, I don't know, 4 times, they don't have it by now. Say they lose. But even this is kind of a real pain in the butt, right? Because now the code gets really long, it gets really confusing, it's hard to read. But the basic premise of it is if they check, or if they guess correctly, we're going to tell them thanks for playing. If they didn't guess correctly, we're going to tell them to guess again. If they guess correctly, we're going to tell them thanks for playing. If they didn't guess correctly, we're going to ask them to guess again. If they guessed correctly, we're going to tell them thanks for playing. If they didn't guess correctly, we're going to tell them to guess again. And if they guess correctly, we're going to tell them thanks for playing. But if they don't guess correctly that time, I'm going to tell them they lost. I think all of my brackets are connected. Open, close, open, close. Oh, open, open, close, open, close. Oh, missed one. Hope that's right. Let's find out. Run it. Errors. Done something poorly, but we don't know what. So I did some copy and pasting. As I copied, I missed a bracket. So I had to go through and check each bracket to make sure that it had a friend. Because my brackets were lined up, I actually used the best practice. It should have been really easy to find, but I had some of them doubled up, which wasn't easy to find. But at the end of the day, making sure every open bracket has a closing bracket associated with it. And then when you run it, your code will work. I'm going to guess the number 5. I guess too low. If 5 is too low, my next guess should always be either 7 or 8. I'm going to guess 8. It's too high. If 5 is too low and 8 is too high, I only have 2 options left, and that's 6 and 7. So worst case scenario, it should take me 4 guesses to win. Now it's telling me I've 1 and 1 guess. We're going to fix that. But no matter what the number is, it should never take more than 4 guesses if it's between 1 and 10. Unless you guess 9, and then you guess 1, and you guess 2 and 4, but then you fail because you had a bad strategy, right? But all of this really is kind of clunky, and this is something that we can fix with a loop. We're not going to fix it today with a loop, but we can fix it with a loop. But we have winning number and user guess in check guess. Right now, it's telling me I've won in 1 guess every time, right? I need some sort of counter to determine how many times I've guessed. So I'm going to make a variable called count. And then every time I tell the user to give me a number between 1 and 10, I'm going to do count plus plus. Now this is another syntax. Count plus plus is the same as saying count is equal to count plus 1. So you could just say count is equal to count plus 1. But I'm going to copy this, and every time I see give us a number between 1 and 10, I'm going to paste in count is equal to count plus 1. Seems okay. Now I'm going to bring in another variable for my check guess. It's called count. And then instead of you won in 1 guess, I'm going to say you won in count guesses. Easy fix. I bring the count in so it knows how many guesses it took me to count. And I increase count every time. But now, every time I run my check guess, I have to bring in my count function or my count number as well. Oh, I missed a space because it just says 4 guesses instead of 4 space guesses. But that is just a guess error. And then for formatting, I'm just going to put some end lines because I don't like the way it looks. Now I have a game I can guess between 1 and 10. It's a straightforward game, relatively easy. And then at the end, it tells me thanks for playing. Because it's nice. So the cool things about what we've done is we've created a function that can return true or false, which makes it a Boolean, right? So it's a Boolean, it returns true or false. Because it can return true or false, I can use that function as a conditional. Because my condition just has to be something that returns true or false. Most of the time, your condition is going to have some sort of Boolean operator, equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. But when you make it a function, then you can do all of that evaluation inside the function, and then you don't have to have a really clunky if statement.
Could even, where you put guesses in parentheses, you could put a conditional right below that that just said, if count equal to 1,
Yeah.
it put in guess. else guesses.
Whoops. So if count equals 1, you 1 and count guess. Out of here. Right? Else. You 1 and count guesses. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
This needs to come back to home. Yeah.
It's-
Yep. Just another if statement to make it cooler. Right? So yes, you could do that. You could also have 5 different if statements. If count equals 1, then you could make this actually 1, right? Else if count equals 2, then you could change it to 2 if you wanted to spell it out that way. There are other decision trees that you could do that would be easier than that, but you could do it with an if statement. Cool. There's your if statements in a nutshell. There's really not a whole lot more to it. The summary of an if statement is just the formatting, right? You have to have an if, you have to have a condition, and you have to have an event. You can have an else if, right? But when you have an else if, which I don't have here, when you have an else if, that if has to have a condition and an event also. If you just have an else, it's evaluating the previous condition and giving you an event when it's false. You can nest ifs. You cannot nest elses, right? So I couldn't have an else here and then another else, because an else has to refer to a previous if statement. But other than that, you can nest as many ifs as you want. I think in this I nested 5, 4, 1, 2, 3. I nested 3 if statements inside of another one, right? Cycling down. Again, you can do this way better and easier with a loop, which we will do next class. But I guess I should have this something you write up and submit. Should I? Just so that you have it and I have it. Run it, number between 1 and 10. 5, 7. Hey, 2 guesses. I'm so smart. Next class will also bring in a random feature so that it picks the number for you, and then you can actually play the game yourself. But we don't need that right now.